Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. So I work for Adyen, which is a Dutch payment company, and I realize I'm not speaking to a group of credit managers in the room, so I will highlight just a little bit more about what Adyen can do to support customer journeys around the revenue management side. So I used to work for a couple airlines in revenue management, so I understand a bit about your role, and hopefully I can help gather a little bit more data points and how I think you can look a little bit more forward thinking about supporting new profit centers that are directly coming from the payment side of the business. So just a couple things I wanted to highlight, and then I'll get into kind of the specifics of the meat of this presentation. We're obviously in the age of experience. You all know that. You know your guests really well. You understand that they have a couple things that they're looking for. Right? They're looking for speed. They're looking for customization. Everyone wants it differently. They all want it fast. As a result, we have very tech-savvy guests now that are coming to your hotels. The irony is, of course, they're tech-savvy, but there's levels of that term. There's also very difference between what people want in their journey. So when you look at the check-in process, you think about a guest who may want to have a very privileged, sort of customized, bespoke check-in process in the room. You may have someone who just wants to go to a kiosk or check in through a mobile app, or they want to have that personal touch point and go to the front desk, or they want the privilege of going to a lounge to check in. These are always different, and we always see differences within the check-in process. So the expectations of the travelers are changing, right? And how does payments impact that? We do see a lot of changes as a result of that, and a lot of our hotel customers have informed us about where their concerns are and how they want to see sort of payments evolving. And as a result, some of the studies that we've done in research, we've seen that 63% of people who really get that customized, that feeling of they're getting that preferred customer journey experience, they're going to definitely come back, right? And we've seen a lot of statistics today, which I thought were very interesting, that kind of highlight the same point. So ultimately, you give them the right kind of experience, they're going to want to come back and visit you again. Now, what does that matter for the brands, and how does it impact the revenue management side of the business? So if you look traditionally at how things were sold, you used to go to a store, they would basically highlight, or in some cases for the travel side, it would be a travel agency, you'd have a discussion with them, they would highlight what they would recommend, and you would believe it based on what you heard about the brand awareness and so forth. But as a result today, with way our customers are going, they're focusing on really what they're controlling, what's within their control. We know about social media, we know about the impact that has on our guests and the feedback that they're getting from that. And as a result, they're doing their own research, they're becoming very well informed, and they're going to make their own preferences and decisions based on that. And from a payment perspective, that's driven by these four things. So I know all of you are very familiar with mobile payments. If you look at, let's say by 2021, 73% of e-commerce will be done on a mobile phone. So that's a pretty high number. And I think from a hospitality standpoint, particularly as the e-commerce managers in the room or revenue managers start to focus on how do we get our direct bookings, obviously having a robust mobile platform will be very key for your business. Second thing, of course, is digital wallets. There are a lot of digital wallets. I think in Malaysia alone, there were like 40 that were issued last year. These are really run by large corporations who want to promote their brand, GrabPay, etc. And they're coming in, and they are important. We at Adyen also recognize that. It is a really big piece of it. Part of it is probably a land grab, so to speak, as we start to see more and more of the industry, and we'll probably see some consolidation there. But digital wallets is there to stay, and it does help increase spend and make it easier for customers to use it. So if you think about PayWave, you think about what Apple Pay's done already to, like, if you go to a Fair Price or to a cold storage or any of the places that you shop locally in Singapore, you would certainly see that they've evolved as well, and everyone has to. Cashless is a big piece of it as well. There are many markets in the world where people would be shocked if you kind of pulled out cash, and the only people that do that are really tourists. So as a hotel, moving in that direction where you're accepting more different types of payment methods for different types of transactions, because that does differ. So for those guests that are F&B that aren't staying in the hotel, what are the types of payment methods that you will offer to them versus the guests that are coming to stay? Which payment methods can take pre-authorizations versus immediate payment? All of these little things matter, and they do differ for your guests. And finally, and this is a big one, and I'll talk a little bit about this in more detail, it's conversational commerce and sort of IoT. And for me personally, I think this is a very exciting space for hospitality in general, because there is a huge opportunity that I don't think has been met yet, and we'll highlight a little bit more about how that matters to you. So previously, when we focused on payments, and I think there are various degrees of where hotels sit. So some of the hotels that we have discussions with focus on sort of a standalone payment, right? So you have a point of sale, and you have a POS software, and you run the payments from there. We've also seen the concept of omni-channel. So that's having a mobile and a web platform, taking your direct bookings, whether that's through a third party or direct to you, and then on an e-commerce platform, and then those two being linked with your point of sale. And what we're seeing a lot of our customers moving forward to is a concept called unified commerce. And unified commerce basically means like we don't really care which distribution channel you're coming from, but we want to give you the same experience regardless of that channel. So if you think about brands like Nike and some of the innovative companies that we've worked for in the past, I feel like they have a very good sense of how they want to kind of manage that experience for their customers. So if you're coming from online and you come into the store, how can I do a refund? How can I find you that piece of clothing that isn't in your right size? If you want, I need to refer you to another store, we'll send that over to you. All of these things kind of blends those different distribution channels into one experience for the customers. And so that's a really big thing. And if you think about hospitality, and you think about the way a customer comes in, are you giving them the same kind of customer journey if they came through an OTA, if they came direct to your website, if they showed up at the door and said, I need a room, right? One of the things that I always find interesting is when I go to a hotel, which maybe I'm a member of, and they have information on me, but I'm just dining there, I don't feel like I get the same experience as if I was checking in at the front desk. So understanding how that impacts your customer journeys and recognizing and acknowledging your customers can make an impact. So where does payments matter? I think that if you have a holistic view of payments and you look at sort of getting sort of overarching payment strategy, it can incorporate a lot of different things that add value. One of them being data. We've heard that, I think, in every single session today. And data is relevant. I think from a payment perspective, we can complement that. A lot of our customers that are looking at just actually physical stores, one of their big feedbacks was, we don't really know our customers. You know, we have the software, we have CRM tools, but where are they coming from? So if I have a shopping basket and I go around to a shop, how much is the spend by each location? So I think in that perspective, I think you can get a lot of value from learning more from your payment gateway, from your payment partners, and ask them that question, right? Ask them what kind of information they can provide to you, because they can be a good resource for data to give you more and better understanding of what your customers are to improve your marketing strategy. And then we spoke about personalized payments. So for us, this is a really big issue. We see that oftentimes where you have one hotel which may have different payment methods than another. You may have different payment product offering on a website, but then when you go to the hotel, you're accepting a different form of payment. Are you able to allow different forms of payment at checkout versus check-in? These things matter, and it's important. So we have what we call local payment methods, or you may have heard of alternate payment methods. I believe tomorrow we will hear from WeChat to learn a little bit more about that. These payment methods matter, right? They are the preferred customer experience. They want to use it. It's to your advantage to accept them because they come at a lower cost than credit cards. So that is something to consider as well. Credit cards obviously have a strong relationship with you. They will still be the ones that will do pre-op, and ultimately will be still the main form of payment that you will want to accept. But sometimes, particularly for F&B or other things, where that immediate payment is there and is accessible to your customers, that is something that they may want to consider using as a preferred form of payment. And having those flexible check-in and check-out journeys. So if you do have one payment method that kind of overhauls all of those, you have the capability of adding those. So if you want to check in the room with a mobile device, you can do that. If you want to have that same customer use the same credit card for a kiosk or for dining and using a mobile app for payment, they can also do that as well. Upsell during the guest stay. So this is something which I think most of you are familiar with, but from our experience, we are working with a lot of different technology providers to provide a holistic solution to support upsell, whether that's from a chatbot that helps make sure that the guests who are inside your property or staying with you are aware of some of the promotions and other things that are going on. So oftentimes that may not be available to them. I think the last 4 or 5 stays I've had at hotels, I try to make it a point to not use the phone in the room and just to try to see how I can engage the hotel using just my mobile device, right? Understanding what is the product that they're providing me and how can I use that, whether it's a chat, if there's a messaging device or things of that nature that I can kind of get experiences from. But then taking it to the next level, how can you engage those customers? You can use proximity. You can say, we just noticed you passed by the spot. Did you know that there's a 1-for-1 promotion before 5 p.m.? So upselling during this day is something that I think we could improve on. And payments also can matter as well, because that affects the pre-authorization. How much did you take? If you want to make that sort of a live, robust authorization, you can do it as the customer is staying through the hotel, not necessarily just taking it off of a large amount that gets released 20 days after they checked out. And then attracting guests with local app. So when I think of a localized app, you have a lot of hotels in Singapore, for instance, that have maybe as high as 40 to 50% of their revenue is coming from F&B, right? That's a lot of money, and I think that from my perspective, when I see the local apps, I get really excited. I want to download it. I get to learn more about what the hotels are offering, and if there's a Michelin star chef that's visiting in town, that's great. But again, going back to that impulsiveness that we have that's driving from mobile technology, you have a device in your hand, you want to make a booking for that, you want to make a reservation, and then it just says, call us, and then you have to wait in line and wait and be on hold. So rather than have that, make sure that your mobile devices have that payment in it, right? Let the customers book now, get them to attract their business as soon as possible. And I think the localized apps that your hotels offer can have this and be giving your customers a little bit more flexibility and getting them to, before they change their mind, start looking at other hotels and for dining options. So what will the future look like in payments, and how is that going to impact you? I think if you can see the slide, it's a bit small. On the left side, it really talks about the different booking opportunities that you have. The method of tokenization, if there's one word from my conversation here that I'd like you to understand, is really that's a little bit different than card encryption, right? So many of you know what card encryption is. It's your credit card number that's masked. Now, a lot of hotels will receive credit card data and then at some point want to manually process them, right? Whether it's online. Now the challenge with that is those credit card numbers may not always be right. And sometimes you have to make that call to the customer and say, is this number right? Or we didn't get a chance to validate that. So that is a challenge. In the middle, you see the different types of how we attract and sort of procure those payment details. Now, that's great, but the key challenge will always be, can you be able to tokenize and keep that credit card data? And I think that's one of the areas in the hotel space where people assume that tokenization means card encryption, and they are two different things. So tokenization means the card is masked. It means that your payment provider should be hosting that, so you're in PCI scope. But it also means that whenever you need to get into your system, whether it's Opera or Info or whatever PMS you're using, you can go directly in and then make that payment or make that partial refund, whatever you need to do. And oftentimes that isn't the case. So tokenization is really key. Now the challenge to tokenization is that you need to have a payment platform that obviously can support all of those. But in the future, right, we should have what's going to be called network tokens. And network tokens is actually really exciting because that basically allows for the first time, instead of having just one payment provider having to do everything and getting messages from OTAs and so forth, and then having to go back to the customer and request for that card detail, now that card encryption detail will be sent between payment companies, basically to get that PAN, which is your account number, to get that off the card, basically make it a one-time use and be able to push transactions directly from a third party to you, and you remain in PCI scope and you can complete that transaction. The next thing, of course, is contextual commerce. This is something that's being rolled out right now. It's really exciting, I think, for us to see, and again, talking about being impulsive, but it's going to be a really big game changer for the industry. And it allows shoppers and guests to basically look, whether it's on Instagram, if it's on a digital magazine, if it's a QR code, and be able to basically just go around, take pictures, recognize what that is. If I see like some nice shoes, I can click it, take a photo. So, the app can basically tell me where I got that, and then with one click I can press the button, press the shoes, and I've already bought the shoes, right? So things are going to be happening in a much faster manner. Chatbots in our rooms, if it's a hotel room in your personal space, you are going to have the flexibility of really making payments a lot faster. And it's important to make sure that you have the right technology in place to allow for that. So I think that this will be a really interesting opportunity for you. And then lastly, I want to talk about the network tokens and how that applies to you. So if I think of hotels, I also think of it as a marketplace, right? You think you have guests who are in your property, but they may also want to try other things. If you look at, for instance, like Ryanair. Ryanair is an airline, but they sell football tickets now on their website, right? Because they realized that there were a lot of customers that were flying on them and were going for a football match. You have a concierge, you have maybe a chatbot, you have a localized mobile app. You have the opportunity to provide your customers who are captivated audience who want to spend money. And to be fair, they may not always want to be spending it in the property. So how do you help that? If you have a concierge who books a special excursion for them, how do you make that payment flow a little bit easier? This can become a profit center for the hotel, because with network tokens, basically the concierge will be able to, in the future, be able to contact the excursion, create a package for them, and be able to send that off right away. Your mobile app would have, here are the top 10 attractions that our guests have recommended, that we think with one click touch, and you can send the details of their payment that you're holding and push that to the third party. The third party will make that transaction without ever having to actually see the PAN number, and then it all remains in PCI scope. So I think that this is where we see kind of the future going. What I would recommend is, for all of you, as you start to learn more about payments, or if you want to understand a bit more, I'm happy to have a conversation with you. I think the best thing in my recommendation is, talk to your payment providers, understand what their capabilities are, especially if it's around tokenization. That's really the big key. That helps your direct channel, that helps start all of these other things, right? Whether it's better data and everything else, and gives you kind of that overarching view of what your payments looks like, what your guest profile looks like, and ultimately will lead you to things like network tokens, which allows you to do really fun stuff like creating more revenue to refer customers to a third party, like an excursion, like a hotel, etc. Any questions? And if not, you can find myself or Priyanka, who I think she knows everyone in the room. So if you guys have a chance, please reach out to us. We'll be happy to have a chat with you. Thanks.